Okay, I think we're live. Hey, how Raul? How's it going?
Oh, hey, Shailendra, how are you? Good, good, good.
I'm doing good. I'm good. I'm good. So this is, I think, early morning for Raul and 7:30 for me here. I think both of us look fresh as a daisy, so I think we'll be able to do this really well. Just quick introductions. I think people already know that we organize a lot of these webinars, HyperTest. We've done about 10 of them last year. I'm the founder at HyperTest. My name is Shailendra, and we have with us Raul, who's a system design engineer par excellence. He's got more than 20 years of experience, close to about 80,000 people, mostly developers, I'm assuming, following him on LinkedIn, and I think probably the same number on Twitter. I think we'll be talking about a very interesting topic, all prepared and set up by Raul. I'm going to be here to ensure that any questions that come or concern Hypertest are answered. But I guess we can start, Raul. The floor is all yours.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. Still working on the number for Twitter, right? But you hit it on the LinkedIn number. Um, Today, can we go to the presentation, Anthony? Okay, thank you so
Hmm.
much. For today, we're going to be talking about some of the challenge, right, that we have. Everybody that have integration tests or has been using intercommunication services know that the mocks are have been there for a long time. They are helpful, right, because they help us to avoid that intercommunication and to develop faster, actually to save some of those calls that we cannot control, right? Some of the external calls we cannot control, really, right? They save us to clean data. They save us to basically focus on what we need to do. But they are come with caveats, right? On today's presentation, we're going to be talking about some of those challenges around integration testing, and mocking, right, related to to integration testing. We'll talk about the hypertest solution, right? What are they proposing to us? What and why they what that work? What that's why that solution work, right? We're going to be doing a live demo on how to use hypertest in some of our services. We're gonna have a QA session, so Q&A session, so you can ask questions to us, and wrapping up everything. So, what are the problems that we have with mocking, right? As you know, if you are trying to mock a service, right, or the intercommunication service, you will have to understand what's going on inside. Not only from the part of your service, but also the service that you are consuming. Because most of the time, right, the data that you are sending to that, the request you are sending to that, also the response that you are receiving, it's gonna change the behavior of your application, right? Based on data, right? Based on that response, you can go for a workflow or a different workflow, or your application can behave totally different, right? So we have to understand those, and potentially you will have to create mocks, different mocks for different scenarios, right? That's when the things starting creating friction, right, in our development process, because we know mocks can help us, but now we have to dedicate time to maintain those mocks, right? To make sure they are totally synchronized with what we are building, because every time a change happen in our external service, we have to go and modify our code, right, to make it working, but also need to modify the mock too, right, and make sure those mocks are aligned and I sync up, and all that thing is just creating friction, right? And what happens is that if you don't have that discipline enough, in some point your mocks are getting behind. um Once you get your mocks behind, now your tests are not reliable anymore, right? So you cannot trust, you cannot, basically ship with confidence, right? So, what is Hypertest proposing us? This is brilliant because this makes one of my favorite approach, which is automation, right? What they are bringing to us is a solution to automate our mocking process, right? So what was going to happening is that they're going to be listening to our traffic, to our application traffic, to our services and APIs traffics. They are going to be creating mocks and tests based on that traffic, right? So and give us some sense of confidence, right? In terms of that the testing, right, the mocking, those objects are going to be creating based on the real scenarios, based on real things that we test in our API, based on real traffic that we are generating, based on edge cases that we can discover during that process, right? So you don't need to think about it. You don't need to um, think about every single path for every single scenario. The application is going to be doing, the platform is going to be doing that for us because we are going to be testing and they are going to be listening, right? So there are three main components that we're going to be talking today, and it's going to be mocking or testing for API intercommunication, right, and contracts. We're going to be talking also testing message queue, using a broker in the middle, right, sending a message to that queue, having a consumer to come back and consume that message. We're going to be seeing how to mock that process, how to save time on that. And of course, finally, on the database levels, right, database is the memory for our systems, right? So we need to understand that um, every time that we save something to database, we need to understand that it's something that we need to clean later, right? So mocks are going to be helping us to do that, and automated mocks by HyperTest is taking care of that for us, right? So a little bit of the architecture of the demo, right? We're going to have three services. These three services interact with each other. Our entry point is right here, the banking service, right? Is our entry point for our application. Interact directly with as an intercommunication service with the approval service, right? Interact through a queue to RabbitMQ with the transaction service. So basically, we are going to be writing a message right there. The consumer of the transaction service is going to be listening and taking care of that message. The three of these messages are talking to the same database. I know it's not best design, but with me, this is just a demo. Um, as you notice, that blue box inside our services that say HyperTest SDK, and what this means is that the SDK needs to live within our application, right? And that's the SDK that is going to helping us to send to the platform what the platform need to simulate the mocks and and what the platform need to create the test for us, right? We have a final component. It's just a CLI component of the platform. That CLI component is going to help us later in the process to replay and to test that the change that we are doing on development time makes sense and pass all the tests that we already created, the platform already created for us, right? So as we say, we're going to be using Node.js for our services. We're going to be running Docker container with our PostgreSQL database and our RabbitMQ instance. Just to be clear, the things that we are going to be, the protocols that we are going to be testing specifically right here is going to be HTTP and MQP, right? So what this, I'm going to show you how the system is looking for those and what they can do for our application, right? We also have a small drive-through dashboard of HyperTest. So you can see this is not a black box. This is something that we can see, we can handle, and we can adjust, right? So I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit. So what else? Well, the first thing that we need to understand about hypertest, right, is that we have two modes in hypertest. We have a record mode, which is basically hypertest as a platform listening to all the calls to our API, right, and the intercommunication call to the other services, to the queue, to the database, listening to all that thing and generate tests and mocks for us to use later on the replay mode. Replay mode is basically we're going to be running our application using those mocks based on the calls that we made before and make sure our changes are not breaking something, right? Um, it, um, um, uh, it's important to say that we can actually integrate hypertesting our CI/CD process. So it's going to help us to also check or have the final coverage and validation at the very end. Um, so how this happened, right? So how what are the actions that I need to do to get this working? First, there is a sign up process. I already have my account created. This will give me access to the platform, to the hypertest platform. It's going to allow me to use the framework and the SDK within my services, right? Then I need to define the services, the backend services, which is basically one per each of our services that we have. We have three services in our side, so we have three services on the dashboard, and those are the link between our source code, our backend API, to the service in Hypertest. Right. This is just a representation of our services on Hypertest. We have to install the SDK, and we're going to be running a record mode. We're going to generate some traffic, and we're going to see a replay mode, right? What we can do with that replay mode. Um, Now let's go back to the let's start first talking about the platform itself. So Anthony, if you can switch to the okay, cool. Thank you. So, HyperTest. This is the platform. You land right here in your more important screen, which is the list of the services that you have, right? To create a service is super simple. There is nothing complex. It's just click on the Add Service button. Click on the Add Service button, right? You specify the platform that you're running right now. HyperTest is supporting Node.js and Java. Specify the service name, and that's it. You create the service is created for you. So just create a demo right here, demo service, whatever. Um, 0129. Now, once the service is created, there is something important that you have to take into account, right? So this service ID right here, you probably need to copy because you're gonna need this when you set up your environment in your source code. I already created three services right here. That is basically the representation of what we have before, the architecture we discussed. And I already copy all the IDs and configure that in my source code, so I can use it, and I will show you how to use it. So for now, let's have some fun. Let's go and share Visual Studio Code and see how what's the process, what's going on, and how simple it is. So let me stop sharing right here, and I'm going to present my Visual Studio Code. Okay, here we are. Accommodate my windows a little bit, and I should be ready in 1 second. Okay, cool. So we noticed that services right there that I already defined. So I save all the IDs right here to this file, and I will use this to basically link my accounts, right? So link my service with my account in HyperTest and my source code to that representation. Um, what are the piece of codes that we need to add to our applications, to our APIs to make sure it communicate with HyperTest? Well, the first thing is at the very top of your file, you should be adding this snip of code. It's basically saying run on record mode to the HyperTest SDK, right? It's importing the HyperTest SDK package right here. And as you can see right here is the service ID, which is the reference to basically to the file that I showed you before. It's just a reference to the ID. The other important thing is the URL, the exported URL, which is basically how HyperTest is going to send data to the SDK is going to send data to the platform, right? All these details are provided through the onboarding process, so you will have that. Um, it's not complex. It's not complex at all. Finally, there is a line that you need to include after you start your application, right? This line right here is just to tell the SDK we are ready to record, right? So those are the two snippets of code that the only two snippets of code that you have to add to the application, right? For now. Um, what else we had to do? Of course, we had to come to the package, right? Add the reference to
A small,
the S. Sorry,
small,
say it again.
small suggestion here.
Okay.
Mark app ready that needs to be done is to ensure that when you run the test, when you run replay,
Mhm.
your application is available or up for us to run the
Ah,
test.
cool.
So just a small
Yeah.
correction there.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for adding that, Shailendra.
sure.
So
Yeah,
right here, I just come here, specify the package, right, that I need to import. I already have a bunch of create a bunch of shortcuts right here and commands to make sure it's easy for us to run the application. By the way, this demo, this source code is available on GitHub. I can share the link later so you can download it and play with it. It gotta have a good practices in terms of configuring the commands and everything that you need to run. There are other configuration files, right? Like you can see right here, that are basically um, um, telling the application, right, what to do when you are on what you need, right, to get your application running when you start testing, right? um Again, it's just configurations on how to speak to how to talk to the API, to the platform, sorry. What's your service ID, the command to start your application or your service, right? So I think a next step, covering the general configurations, I think next steps just to run npm install, and then let's see what's going on, right? So we're gonna be installing all dependencies that we need. Gonna see if everything runs smoothly, what's going on. Then after this, we're gonna be running the application, right? So say okay, so let's say that everything was well. So time to run the application, and to run the application is just going to be an npm run star. This is a command that I already defined. This right here is gonna make sure the application is the three services are running. Um, let's see, everything seems to be up, right? Waiting for messages. Okay, that's good. The queue is already commented. I already have my Docker running. Um,
mm,
so this is set up, but at some point I'm gonna shut down that Docker and I show you how to run all the tests without that Docker dependency at all. Um, so, okay, right here we have everything that we need. So the applications are running. HyperTest is set up. At this point, what we need to do is basically simulate the traffic, right? And to simulate the traffic, we have a script right here. This just basically calls to our API, right? to our banking API, and that would spawn some calls to intercommunication with the approval services. Approval service send also messages to the queue for the transaction thing. So I'm gonna run this. You can use, I mean, you can use Postman to do this. You can use Core, whatever. It's just simple calls to your API uh, to uh, to allow the platform to understand what's going on, right, and to start recording all the traffic that you need to the application. If you have an UI, right, a UI can do the same. It's just calling your application, right? Um,
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. That helps because in case anybody here is interested to build test from live traffic,
mhm.
any traffic that is coming to your application from any environment, even your live environment, can be
Right.
recorded by HyperTest. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Mhm.
So right here, all the simulation already happened. I don't need the application running anymore, so I'm gonna stop the application. This is basically a record mode. The record mode already run, right? Our traffic uh, go to our APIs, to our different services, and get tracked. And how do we know the traffic get tracked itself? So for that, I'm gonna be stop sharing my Visual Studio, and I go back to the dashboard because the dashboard is gonna show us something interesting. So let me go back dashboard. Okay. Right here on the dashboard. Now let's go to banking services, right? So I can click here, view service.
You can.
I'm sharing.
No. I don't think I can see your
Oh,
screen. I think you're probably not sharing. Yeah.
okay. Let me go again. 1 second. Screen sharing. Oh no. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Looking good, right? Okay, perfect. So
I think you're already
um,
inside the service, maybe.
right.
Uh,
So I'm already inside the service. So if I go back, here's the my main screen. So banking service. I'm gonna view that service and I'm gonna click on all requests. Uh,
you can click maybe, try clicking it a couple of times. It should work.
I think it's the because the okay. Wait a second. Let me scale down a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. Let me try another service. Second session. You know what? For some reason, it's not loading the service requests.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just
Need
make
to try.
sure it's the
Mhm.
same ID. Uh, some services. Okay, 14A. Yeah, that's correct. Refresh the page just to make sure. Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. So if I navigate to the all requests tab on the service right now, I can see all the services, all the calls that were recorded by HyperTest. This call was basically a simulation, what my simulation runs, right? So I can see how to create an account, right? What's going on here? This is because we are creating, so the platform is creating actually negative thefts based on our application too. So you will see 200s right here, you will see 500s, you will see different cases. So let me go to an example of intercommunication. Somewhere right here, we have an approval.
I think it's down. Yeah. Yeah, this one.
Is this one, right? No, which one it is? There's an approval right here. I want to request approval, right? So here's the thing, right? So it's basically telling us that it was a request right here. Pause for our service, gonna the status number 200. Um, and it's an outbound call, right? So this is a banking service calling another service. And let's see what's going on. It's saying that basically it's called localhost 301, which is basically the approval service, right? This is the road, the path that we use for the approval. And you can actually see the response and the request. If you go to approval service, right?
In fact, Raul, you even see the response of the approval service right there. If you go
Mhm.
back to that request, we see the outbound call that banking service has made to approval, as well as the response of the approval service, which
Uh-huh.
will be used as a mock when we run the test or replay.
Right, right.
Yeah. If you go down, the readable input is the
Mhm.
outbound call that the banking service makes to the approval service. The readable output is the response of the
Right.
approval service that is being captured here, and that will be eventually used as a mock.
Exactly. Right. And if we go to the approval service itself, um, we should be able to see those calls too. Right.
Yeah,
There you go.
perfect.
Here's the proof call. This is what happened, the response, the request. Actually, right here, you will see another call, right, to the database. Basically, this is for validating that the user exists, and then to set the approval status for that specific user. So you can see right here basically how detailed and um, the level of the details that actually the framework is logging for us and is capturing for us. Actually, this is a pretty cool view of what you can see right here. This is the call, right? So you can see the who is calling what, right? Um, okay, so that said, we already recorded something, right? Now, how can we make that useful for us, right? So I'm gonna stop sharing the dashboard. Um, I will share Visual Studio again.
Hmm.
Okay, here we are. So right now, um, how do we know this is working, right? So I already set up a couple of comments right here. So I will run the I wanna see a test coverage, right? I want to see what's going on my application. Um, um, what's HyperTest create for me. So gonna run this test coverage specifically for a banking service, right? Let's see what's going on.
You want to introduce a change and then run a test, or
Right,
that's
right.
already done?
So let's run the test first to see what's going on. Then
Sure.
let's start introducing changes, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
so I basically say, hey, there are 20 already tests right here. I write zero line of code for this test, zero marks, zero everything. This is the platform only just created the test, right? And I said zero fail, right? I can see right here report of coverage. There is also more detailed report right here that I'm going to show you later. But you can actually see what's going on. Also,
Probably. Raul lost his connection. So, in case, guys, you are live here, what Raul just did till he gets back, explain, is that he built the test, which you would have understood from the record mode. Now he's just running the test using what is called the replay mode. So he typed another command as a CLI, and what it did is that it ran the same very test or the same very request that Raul had recorded when he built those tests. And when these requests were run again, what HyperTest did was, if you remember, Raul showed an example of banking service calling the approval service and a lot of other flows. HyperTest ran those requests again, and this time around, all the responses of the outbound of the external systems, like in that case, the banking service calling the approval service, those responses were used as mocks, and the same very requests were run again. So normally, when somebody writes test by themselves, uh, one thing that they try to do is ensure that these mocks try to mimic the real or the current behavior of these external systems. What HyperTest did without anybody writing a line of code is not only generate these tests, but mock these external systems in their current state. So when the tests are run again, what developers end up getting are tests that mock these external systems. And in case there is any change in the service itself, only report those code or logical problems. So the entire effort of writing a mock, not only writing a good mock, but writing a mock that is mimicking the actual behavior of the downstream system is completely eliminated. So that, in a nutshell, is what Hypertest ends up achieving. I think we'll wait probably for Raul to get back and maybe complete the rest part of the presentation. We're just going to introduce a couple of bugs in those services and see, once those tests are run, how Hypertest will be able to catch that. But in the meantime, I think we were planning to have an Q&A session at the end of the webinar. In case anybody who's viewing it live at the moment has any questions on what they've seen so far, I can probably quickly answer them, and we can make use of this time. And then Raul is back, we can resume the presentation. So we'll be open for questions. If you have any questions on anything that you've seen so far, would love to take them. Sorry for this small interruption. I think he probably lost his connection. Okay, all right. So I've got a question from Arslan. I don't think you joined late by any means. So I think your question is if we can post some video test runs for common cases. So I think if you followed it so far, I think you would have understood that the test cases were automatically built by HyperTest by looking at the API traffic or the application traffic. So assume any normal user flow that happens in an application. If you set up the HyperTest SDK, and as and when your application is deployed in an environment in which that specific flow or activity takes place, it will pick that up from the environment and convert it into a test. So a test scenario, or say a request, all means the same for us. But the idea is that whatever activity is possible in your application, HyperTest will convert that into a test case or a regression suite, so to say, in the same manner. Just pick it up and deposit it as it is. And in doing so, what we'll do is we'll record the complete trace of the request. We'll record the incoming payload, the outbound calls that the service is making for that request, which could be an outbound call to a database, to a downstream service, even a message queue, as well as a response of these external systems. So all of this gets recorded. And then what we were showing just now before Raul got cut off is when these tests are run again, what happens, what kind of problems do what kind of regressions can it end up catching. So the general principle is that whatever is possible, it will record that. There's a great question by Homa. Can HyperTest automatically generate test cases from API documentation? So that's a good question, Homa. In fact, we will go a step further and essentially do two things. Since we look at your traffic and build test, we will be able to generate an open API specification or Swagger for you, which is far more updated than you would get the time to build yourself. So it will not only have the schema for your request, but will also have different responses that that specific endpoint, different specifications or different responses, schemas of the responses that your endpoint gets hit with. So it will prepare a far more extensive and richer Swagger doc. And second is that in cases that you're not sure, whether you have built a specification of all your APIs properly, building tests from traffic would basically give you more comprehensive and extensive coverage. So you'll end up covering happy as well as unhappy flows, edge cases that would be hard to think of, when you end up writing your own test. So a shorter answer would be that in case you already have a Swagger doc, we'll prepare a more comprehensive test suite from your traffic, and it will end up covering more cases. Oh, Raul is back. Hey, Raul. We made use of the time in between and answered a few
Yeah,
questions.
sorry.
No problem.
Yeah,
No problem.
yeah.
No
Demo
problem.
time. Demo time. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
sure. No problem.
Have an
Yeah.
interruption right here.
Hmm.
So, okay. So back to business. So where I left on the, we run all the traffic, right? We generate our test. We see our coverage, right?
Right.
So what else we can do now? I'm going to share really quick the Visual Studio again, and okay, let me know. Just loading. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna show you where the real magic happened, right? So let's say that we are changing our code, and now we are development time. So before we were kind of record time. Now we are gonna be replayed, right? As we develop or change something in our thing. So let's say that we are changing something in our service, right? And we want to make sure still working as expected, right?
Raul,
Um,
I don't want to interrupt here. There's a question by somebody from the audience who wanted to see a real test. So maybe we can see that once you made the change and run the test again.
right,
But
right,
like you
yeah,
wanted to
let's do
just
it.
see what this
Yeah,
looks like. Yeah,
yeah, that's the plan. So
sure.
there is a bug right here that I have introduced to the system, right? Of course, this is going to change everything, right? It's going to change part of the transaction type and what's going on right here. So now, what happened if I run test coverage again? Again, the only thing that I did was change a line of code, right? That I know is going to break something, but I don't know, right? So
Right.
let's run the test coverage again, right, and see what's going on. As you see right here, they say HyperTest is running right now in replay mode, right? And it's running all the tests that previously recorded for me, right? And it say basically, hey, there is a test right here that is failing, right? Based on the coverage. So how can I see what's going on? So there's a URL right here that I can navigate, right? Um, but also let me share really quick the dashboard, right? Because in the dashboard we can see details of what's really happening. So let me share. Let's share the dashboard and go back again. Now, on dashboard, right? Go back to the service screen. Banking service, view service, and now we can see test results right here, right? So the first test result was the one that we run before the interruption. Everything goes well. 20 tests were created. If you want to see the details on those tests, you can click and see what's going on right there. So it's basically saying, and this is when the recording get into place, right? So it's basically saying, hey, the expectation was this value right here, the reality was this, and this compare based on the response uh, of the status quo and the response body, what's going on, and it's going to let us something change, right? Now let's see what happened on the second test that we ran, right? On the second test, we say, hey, was a 20 requests, total 20 requests, but now one failed. And if we click right here, we can see the details of what's going on there. And it's basically telling us, hey, this is what happened right here. This was the outbound call. I was expecting this was the debit, and now what I got is credit. So this is basically detecting that our change is affecting what we were building before, right? Um, this is an alert for us, right? And you can see right here, this is a message that we send to the queue, right? So this is one of the coolest things, right? That you can see. But also, what happened if that change make sense, right? So obviously, this example right here doesn't make change, right? It's just a bug that we introduced, right? But if the change makes sense, there is an option right here that said accept all changes, and this is basically update. This is gonna be updating that call and telling no, this is the expected behavior now. So next time when you run it, it's gonna get the new expected behavior. So this is the only maintenance you will have to do if you change something instead of writing lines of code and tested that mock again and make sure that line of code you change is across different mocks because you have different mocks for different scenarios. Now the only thing you have to do is just accept the change on the test uh, that were flagged, right? If that makes sense, right? So this is actually how the magic happened. In this example specifically, we target the rabbit and queue message, right? So you see right here is just the message, just the message that we send to the channel. But I have another bug
In fact,
for
a small 10-second,
mhm,
digress. So if you sort of open up the PG pool query, maybe you can show the people what a
mhm,
mock actually looks like. So if you guys followed that, what we're doing is we are capturing the response, the call as well as the response to the external system. So if you just open up readable input rows, so we see on the left hand side, the expectation says that this is the query made to the PG database. When we replay, we run the same query, but the output, the mocked output, is basically the response of the database
mhm.
that happened during the record mode that we've used when we replay the request again. So,
Right.
just for the audience to understand, this is exactly what Raul is trying to explain with HyperTest. These are the mocks that we are using when we replay the test or the
Right.
request.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, again, if we go back to the source code, let me go back to the window. Come on, percent. It's loading the screen for some reason. It's taking some time. Um, Share back the service. Hmm, it's weird. I can see the sharing screen right here, but it's not in the streaming, right? Okay, it's
No, no,
live.
it is, it is, it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me go back to the Visual Studio now.
I think probably he's already understood that Raul ran the test for banking service. Now he's going to run it for others as well.
Right. So, Visual Studio. Let me fix the book that I introduced. Right. We don't want this thing around. And now I can run the service for another. I mean, run the test for another services. Um, we have the running for approval, right?
Yeah.
Running for approval. And we can run it for consumer too. The same thing happened, right? It's gonna get all the scenarios that the record model got, and then it's gonna replay the call and try to make it happen, right? So in this case, it's just generate three cases. If I run it for consumer, which is the transactions API, it's gonna have a different test cases for that.
And the cool thing here is that it's also reporting coverage, which basically,
Right,
ensures that you know what's getting covered and what's
right.
getting
So
tested.
now, this folder right here, this is pretty cool. Right here in this folder, you can actually see what's going on. Um, you click here and say, "Gonna open in the live browser." I'm going to let me share that one. Sure. And right here, you can see basically what's going on, what's the coverage, right? This is my application. These are different tests or files that were tested, right? Um, Here you can see the services, transaction consumer. You can see the lines that were covered, right? The one that is missing, pointing out what's going on. And the same thing, you can have this coverage for every single report or every single service that you run. Um, what else? What else is worth to mention? I'm, I'm just to be clear at this point, I just can go to Docker, stop my Docker container, right? And I can keep develop right here because there's zero dependencies on those things. It's just the things that is happening on my source code. Um, what else I missed? Well, so far, can we go back to the presentation, Anthony?
Should we show results for the other two services? Like I think you ran
Yeah,
tests for them.
yeah,
Do you want?
we can
Okay.
definitely. Let me
Okay.
running the approval banking one and show the results on that one too. Seconds running the test. Set 20 pass now since I fixed the line. Let me open the coverage. And this is a little bit more complex because the file is not yet, and it's, again, is telling us what's happening, right? Telling us 90% of things,
So
94% coverage, right?
yeah, everything
Uh,
everything in red is not covered. Anything else which is not highlighted is covered. Yeah.
exactly, right.
Yeah.
So again, this is a report that you can actually publish up on your CI/CD pipeline, right? So you can take advantage of the also this on your process, right? So What else? What else we need to present so far? I think we can go back to the presentation if you agree.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's okay. We can. You can upload the presentation. I think we, since you rejoined,
Oh,
we don't have that presentation.
oh,
Yeah.
right, right, right.
Mm,
Sorry.
right. If you have it, can maybe share your screen and maybe.
Yeah, let me load the file again. Okay, I think the file is ready. Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
So far, what we are watching right here. So we already know how to hypertest actually um, capture all the traffic to my application, to my services, right? How can we visualize that traffic and the mocks and the request and the response on the dashboard? How can we use that those traces to work on replace mode, or basically development time, when we are changing our services and we are introducing changes, and see if the services are not broken or the communication is not broken. And we know how to take that issue and see what's going on, how to fix that issue or accept the change because it makes sense right now. So those are the basic points of the presentation, right? Um, what are the real world benefits, right, of putting a hypertest platform in your application, in your systems right now? So the first thing is reliable test with automated mocks, right? So zero source code. You saw me right there. I didn't write a line of code for the mocks, neither for the test, right? Um, the tests are reliable because they are based on the traffic, right? So if you have a QA team or you have someone that is a consumer that is sending a request to your API, all those cases are going to be recorded right there. Doesn't matter if it's a happy path, if it's a not so happy path, or it's an edge case. Uh, uh, Hypertest is going to record that for you, right? The second thing is you're gonna have those tests ready, and your test is gonna run really fast because they are gonna be running on those mocks. No dependency on inter-service communication, no dependencies on internal services or database. No clean up of data. You don't need to clean up anything right now on your database because you never touch it, right? And that's one of the huge issues when we don't use mocks, right? And let's be honest, some of these external services, you don't even have the opportunity to clean data. You don't even have the environments. Like, this is another common problem, right? So the provider or internal service only have QA and production, and you have three environments. You have UIT maybe in the middle, or you have an staging environment that you want to test against production, and you don't have the ability to do that. So all these problems are going to be solving by introducing hypertest into your development cycle, right? These are the real world benefits. Key takeaways. Using hypertests, to be honest, reduce manual effort, right? So you don't have to worry about those tests. You don't have to write anything. The platform is doing that for you. It's going to improve testability because once you have to maintain all those tests and all those mocks, it's just introducing friction into your development cycle. And friction with the time is just, people are going to stop making those tests, to be honest.
Right. Right.
Um, and the last thing, which is probably the most important, is that you're going to be shipping faster, right? If you have those tests that you can run really quick based on real cases scenarios of your application, based on real use case, edge case that Hypertest is covered for you, you're going to have more confidence. You're going to run those tests, you're going to integrate it on your CI/CD, and you're going to ship your code to production really fast. I think that's it. I think it's time for some Q&A questions. If someone want to add, you want to add something, Shailendra, please free to add it.
Yeah, I would just say great webinar, Raul. It was a fantastic webinar, even for somebody who knows what you're going to present. This was fantastic, by the way. And
Thank you, man.
what we do is we'll open it for Q&A. We already got two questions asked, and yeah, it's up to you now. So we have Zadar asking. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, uh, but is it possible to make stress test with the tool? If it's okay, Rahul, I'll take that question.
Okay, yep. Put it.
So you can. So basically, the primary use case with hypertest is regression testing and not so much with load testing, if that's what you mean. Because what we can do is, since we are already capturing the load, we can provide that. If you set up an environment where you want to perform a load test, since we have built that load or captured that load from your live traffic, you can export that load and run your own load test, so that these tests are completely exportable. If you use JMeter or any other load testing tool, you can use our load, our the traffic that we recorded to run your load test. Hope that works. And this is going to be more useful because this is real actual scenarios, played out in your application. So you'll be able to make more sense of the load test that you designed with our load. Okay, thanks for this. This, by the way, it's a great complementary, adjacent use case with
Yep.
HyperTest. Okay, there's another question from Madan Gopal. I think this is a compliment for you, Rahul. I guess you
Oh,
should respond to this.
thanks, man.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we would have a recording for this session. We will send this out to not only all the attendees, but also the ones that registered. So don't worry. We will have this recording coming your way very soon. Anything else? I guess this should be it. Yeah, I think this should be it. These were all the questions. You probably missed two, so I answered them for you. But yeah, we have already covered everything. Again, thanks everybody who joined the webinar, who were able to take out time. We tried to make it work across two time zones, the Eastern time zone in US and obviously the Indian time zone. I hope this was useful, and thanks for taking our time, Raul, for this excellent webinar, the demo as well as the presentation. Everybody is going to get a recording for that. Just quick giveaway at the end of the call. Anybody who's willing to or who's interested to try HyperTest can sign up from our website, and we have got limited 10 slots open. For anybody who signs up after the webinar, we will arrange a free strategy session, all done by me. So you can sign up, and you can we will reach out to you with the calendar link, with my personal calendar link, and I'll organize a strategy session free of cost for you, helping you understand how you can make use of hypertest in your team. So again, I think we've had a great session. Thanks for your time, Rahul, and I think I'll leave it to that. Any final notes you have? All yours.
Perfect. Yeah. Just want to say thank you to the audience. Just to say that reliable tests lead to confident deployment and happy teams. So make sure you take a look at this platform. HyperTest is going to save you a lot of time in your development cycle, and it's going to give you a lot of confidence to ship to production really fast. So thank you again, and see you in the next
Thank
one.
you. Thank you. Take care, Rahul. Have a good day. Bye bye.